Welcome to South Charlotte Sports Report Live. We are here with you on a Tuesday night with a really exciting guest, and I can't wait to bring her in. As she is Rebecca Ivanoff. She is a CMS mom and a very active and engaged one who wants to make sure her children have the choice to go back into the classroom. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. First of all, I want to say thank you for having me. And I know that you do the sports report, and I just got to get that in there that, up until that infamous Friday, March 13th, my sport last year was Science Olympiad. I was a Science Olympiad coach for one of my kids in another state. We even went to this national competition. So that is like the sports of the academia world. And so I certainly appreciate, everything that you do. And I know that, we're just getting back here with some of our CMS kids in terms of sports. And I'm rooting for all those academic clubs and band and art and all of the above now, as we're just trying to go back to school like our surrounding counties at this point.
We've got to get everything going again, as you and I have talked about. But no, I've been with South Charlotte Sports Report for 17 years now, and it's never been about the sports. It's always been about advocating for kids. And right now, you and I and the rest of the city that believes in it are advocating as hard as we can to get the CMS classrooms back open up for middle school and high school kids. They have been locked out since March 13th. What is some of the folks you talk to and some of your friends? What has it done to these middle school and high school kids to not be able to go back in the classroom for such a long period of time?
Well, first and foremost, every kid has simply responded differently to virtual learning. You may have 5 or 10% that said, hey, I was bullied and not focused in school, and I've actually figured out a way by myself when I separate that, but that is the vast minority. When you take a look at the stats, and I talk to friends. I have friends who teach in Title I schools throughout Charlotte, in the surrounding counties. I have a background in education, and I was in a Title I school at one point. And when you see it and you feel the kids that are struggling when they're in person, not to mention their family situations. And now once you're homebound, suddenly you're having to advocate for those students that are falling off the map. We're worried about, suicide in Vegas made the national news lately. It's very hidden in this area, but one year I was in a district and there was one that was on the news, but there were 4 in 1 year. So that's kind of that silent end of it. But really, it's just the guilt. It's the ending. How do I take care of my family? Or in some cases, if parents have to go out and work, if they can't afford a babysitter, the high schoolers can't be on Zoom all day because they have to watch their siblings. And so it's every possible scenario under the sun.
Oh, there's so many different things going on. I have a very good friend, a friend of my son. He's an Artie Kell High School student. Good student, the kind of kid that's in college placement type courses. I asked him on Sunday, when you turn on your camera to go into your classrooms, how many kids are there? And he said, it's gotten here recently where there's probably only about 60% of the kids are checked in, and generally only 5 or 6 of them in his classes even have their camera turned on. And we've just hit a point now where, and I don't blame these kids. We've hit a point now where we're stuck. It's time to get things going again. You talked about the mental aspect of this. Tomorrow at 4:00, I've got Dr. James Rachel from Atrium Psychiatric. He leads the psychiatric division down there. He's going to come back on my show tomorrow and talk about the mental aspect of this and how we can help our children, how we can help ourselves as parents, and how we can help everyone as we continue to adjust through this. But you are part of something kind of interesting right now. Here recently, in the last couple of days, people have seen open, I don't have the exact wording, you can give it to me, but signs appearing all around town encouraging the school board to give the choice to go back in, right?
Well, certainly, I even got involved a little bit later in the game. And I think as many parents, we wanted to give CMS a chance. We wanted to give the board a chance. We were willing to be patient in fall. But when you're over 100 days into school and you have the data, number one, okay, this huge Duke study comes out, over 90,000 students. There was 0 cases of transmission between student and teacher. Let that sink in. If this argument is that the teachers aren't safe, that's ridiculous. Talk to any teacher At the private schools, the surrounding counties, everybody goes to work. Everyone deserves to feel safe. Like, we get that. But this is no different than anywhere else. Not when you're on the forefront of fighting for your kids. And talk to administrators. The amount of home visits that are being requested. I mean, the police officers are even being called to go check on. We're missing 10,000 kids. Some parents in the neighborhoods that they're being quiet, but they're quietly voting with their feet. And we're losing students to the charter schools. We're losing students to the private schools. I had a conversation with a parent who did choose the private school route. And she said, Rebecca, I got to tell you, I'm for public schools and I will fight for them. But when I walked through the halls of Charlotte Catholic and I got into my car and I just cried and cried. I mean, it's just exhausting at this point because CMS is treating us different than everybody else. We're this magic unicorn in the center. We're watching Gaston County and what's Cabarrus doing. And oh, my friends are 5 miles down the road going to school in Union County. But yet here we are in the middle, and it's an outdated metric that they're using. I mean, when all the studies come out saying that there is not a link between the community spread and the in-school spread. And I'll go back to that Duke case, the study. The over 700 cases, I think it was 793, were all traced to community spread, but the actual student to student amongst 90,000 was 32. So when you just follow the data, and we have the data now, this is not a conversation we thought we'd be having back in August. But unfortunately, when we've entrusted them, and then now you have board meeting after board meeting, and the last one, Sean Strain, it's like 8-1 against, and he's the only one, reading the data. And in our opinion, the voice of reason for choice. So the signs are about choice, positive choice. If you don't feel safe, you can keep your kids home, and CMS will support you. And they need to, or the enrollment's going to keep dropping. But the teachers want to support the kids who have the choice to be at home or in person. And statistically, the surveys that went out last summer around the country, I mean, I know people in several different states, it was about 65% wanted to go in person. And I don't feel that those numbers have changed too much, to about 35% of virtual. So until June, which is currently when the governor's, the bill to provide public schools the option to give virtual, it expires in June. So as of right now, Plan B is as good as it's going to get. Let parents decide.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I've jumped into this issue pretty big myself over the last couple months because I just could not stand to see what was happening to so many of these kids around here from a mental aspect and from a just simply not being able to get back into class and being locked out. And I think one of the most discouraging things that I hear and I have experienced is to get communication from 80% of that board is impossible. I have invited the chairman of the school board, Elise Dacier, onto my show for 3 weeks now. I'm too busy. I can't do it. That's the answer I get. I have hosted folks like Mandy Cohen, Sue Doran, people that I don't necessarily agree with, but have been incredibly fair. All that I'm trying to do is bring communication to the public. And when we have leaders that simply will not stand up and talk and talk to the community, it's so frustrating, I think, for the families. And, we're sitting here now. I know that the last thing that happened said that kids would return February 15th and 22nd. I might be off on the dates there a little bit. But
yeah, it's a week after the board meeting and the board.
I don't think anyone feels confident that, boy, we're going back to school on the 15th. Let me pack my son's lunch. We feel like what is going to swoop in like Gibby Harris, the Mecklenburg health director, did a few weeks ago when she gave them all the cover they needed to keep from going back again 3 weeks ago. What's going to come up next? I will say this. The more I think about it, the more I look at it, I believe this superintendent is ready to get the kids back in the classroom. Now, he's got to have the approval of the board, and that's going to take, let's see, there's 9 votes. It's going to take 5 votes there, but which have happened. Like I said, that vote has happened to send them back, but you just don't feel confident that it's going to stick like there. But let's get back again. So we're talking the choice, and that's what you're promoting. The group on Facebook got together, ordered a bunch of signs, yard signs, and began to put those out. And as I look across Facebook today, I see that a CMS board member, Carol Sawyer, has taken it upon herself to do everything she can to have those signs removed by the city. What in the world is she putting that as the first thing on her list, to take a sign, to have a sign taken away that's 8 feet away from the road instead of 11 feet of a road? What in the world? Why are we worried about this right now? Is that message need to be defeated that bad? I mean, what are the folks inside of your group saying when they, at those kind of discussions and learning what Carol has been doing, calling on the city to take those down?
Well, I was certainly very surprised. I mean, definitely people came to me right away as one of the organizers of the signs, because we're trying to spread a positive message. And we thought, what a great way, almost make it like a political campaign. Because as parents, we feel it's very political at times because our hands are tied behind us, 8 out of the 9 board members right now. So even like I had mentioned it earlier that, hey, I heard that an opposing board member, I didn't mention names. But it's just shocking to me that on one hand, okay, great. If the ordinance says so many feet away and there's a sign that's not quite far, let's be real. Drive down the road. Look at all the landscaping. Heck, the COVID testing signs you drive by, the coffee shops, they're everywhere. But magically, our signs were requested to the city of Charlotte to be removed. But at the same time, we're all about the positive message. So, we might vent personally, but I don't want to get low and dirty ever. And that's one of the reasons I've stayed on this site. I want nothing to do with the North Carolina Association of Educators. Like I said, I happen to work in education, but not with CMS. And I have many friends who are just shocked that we're not a unionized state, but how dare they represent all the teachers and speak for the voices of the educators, that teacher safety and the threat when there's no data to support in-school threat of spread to adults over the needs of our children. It's astounding. And we're not going to stop fighting until, heaven forbid, that March 13th date or beyond, comes, if something changes the way it did last fall. 1 week it was this, they turned down a dime and voted something, just like you said, with Gibby Harris and everything else. The faith, unfortunately, in our board is long gone. The dysfunction, I don't know why we're so different from Wake, Union, Gaston. When you watch all of these board meetings online, and that first 5-hour one last summer was incredibly painful, but I sat through the whole thing just shocked. But that's where I said, you know what? If this goes the way I think it might go into winter, I'm going to need to find a way to make a change, to get involved. In this group, we stay positive. Like I said, we're very anti anything negative. We're choosing the high road, and the signs is one of the best ways to get our message out there.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's the only thing you're looking for is for your child to have the opportunity to go back inside the classroom, correct?
I'll be honest with you. It's not my child half as much as it is the other kids I know out there that are struggling a lot more. My kids have 2 working parents. My kids have a roof over their head. But I know the families, I've worked with the families, students living out of their car, the cases of abuse that are uncovered in the classroom, and we get that to somewhere safe. What the social workers do, understanding what the administrators right now are being asked to do, all the home calls, all the calls to the counselors when teachers are worried about their students and students are worried about their students. That's what's happening. I know my kids are going to be okay. I'm stressed to the max about it. I feel guilty every day as a working parent because I can't be by their side, helping them through it, especially my youngest. I mean, high schoolers are fairly independent. A lot of middle schoolers are. But when you have kids like I do in elementary on up through high school, that's where most of the parents are at. Every child is different as well as their needs.
Exactly. Could you ever imagine last March 13th that we would still be sitting here February 2nd with the school locks on the school doors, and B, yourself so engaged in an issue that you believe so much in?
Well, I'm not surprised in myself that I just kind of jumped and went with the issue this far in. Once I realized, wow, this really isn't not. It's getting worse. It's not getting better. And then when I watched more parents leaving CMS, I mean, there are websites where they're sharing, hey, how do I go all in for homeschool? Virtual's not working for me. Or hey, second semester, I cried about it. But I got into a private school and I pulled my kids out of CMS. And then especially in the winter, all these reports. But yeah, the irony of Friday the 13th. And then today it's Groundhog's Day. I'm usually a pretty positive person, but I'm not afraid to say that I post, what did the groundhog discover today? Is it 6 weeks more virtual learning? Oh, I mean, of winter. Right? We got to get a joke in here at this point, because that's all that's left is the support of and encouragement of one another, but also the listening to each other. I mean, we haven't even talked about 504s and IEPs that are federally mandated and not being met. They're not possibly met on a Zoom or a Meet. And there's lawsuits right now. So not only are we going to lose enrollment in fall, there's major lawsuits right now against the board. I mean, so unfortunately, people that voted or didn't vote for them, that's costing our children dearly, as well as potentially our tax dollars at this point. It's nuts.
The budget of CMS is going to change, and it's
drastically.
The less students you have enrolled, the less money you're going to get from the government, and that's going to be a big blow. It's going to be a very big blow, and it's going to hurt everyone. Is what's going to happen there, and it's very discouraging. But I think I want to commend you. I want to commend everyone that has been as vocal as you have been and is fighting as much as you have been for children, not just your children, but all children. The one thing you can never stop doing as a parent is advocating both for your child and other child's. Those children do not have a voice. No matter what you say, they don't get a voice. We as adults, when we see that children need help, must stand up and be their voice. And that's why I commend you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you. And a perfect example of that, I'm trying to remember if it was a Virginia school board, when you're watching across the country, then everyone else is having the same struggles, or you may be blessed to have kids that are functioning in this underneath the circumstances and you're making ends meet. And then you hear the stories of some parents that are just at their wits' end. There was one where the gentleman got up and then it was cut off. I believe he had 1 minute. And then right behind him, he had signed up for his child who was handicapped and literally he did not have auditory functioning, and the board denied him that right to speak for his child. When I see things like that, my first job was at a YMCA. I was a lifeguard in the Midwest, and I worked with every demographic underneath the sun, and it opened my eyes, not only to the possibilities of children, but also to the different environments. And we're interwoven, we're all connected. But I mean, the services that the schools provide, whether it's the backpack home food, it's not just the lunches. There are families that go home to no food in their cabinets over the weekend. We're not doing those backpacker programs right now. And all the social services. And like I said, uncovering, unfortunately, the cases of abuse and bullying and everything. It's very, very different because it's very hidden when they're at home, and it's not always a safe environment. And so I'm just so thankful and grateful for all the educators out there that are doing their best and who want to go back for their kids, but also the administrators and the counselors that just overwhelmed right now with the requests, like I said, for the home visits or trying to figure out where those over 10,000 students have gone. I pray for those kids and I fear for them every day.
And listen, you said something exactly right. This isn't parents versus teachers by any means.
Absolutely
not even close to being parents versus teachers. We as parents recognize the incredible value and hard work that every teacher is doing under these conditions. It is not that, and I think that's the biggest thing that's got to be stressed right now. It's not parents versus teachers. It's a group, a board that has put everyone in this position because of a complete lack of leadership and the inability to find a pathway to yes that's caused this. And somehow we've got to get going again, get it fixed, finish the semester strong, and pray to God that by August we come back with a much better plan than what has happened this year.
Right. And I'll be honest, in terms of like my voice becoming louder and why I'm doing these interviews, and I'm just so thankful to have the opportunity to voice, like you said, for the kids who can't, is because I'm so just astounded, dumbfounded that the idea of parent choice is so controversial. I'm like, on one hand, we can't force all the kids to go to school, but on the other hand, you're forcing our hand so that the kids can't go to school. I'm beside myself. Everything from, well, kids have to go to daycare, the high schoolers home watching the younger siblings, the kids have to go to grandma. What do the parents do? Some can afford to, hire the tutors. Some kids are just F's or have given up this late in the year. I mean, it's just been a big snowball effect with the dysfunctioning board who keeps quoting these out-of-date metrics. Well, we set this parameter that's kind of like saying we're going to use the data from August now that we have, we're 6 months in to having the information around us. Throw it out the window, listen to the experts. The board is not the experts, and they need to start putting our children first.
I think you nailed it right there. I think you brought us to a really good point to close it out on the night. You are doing an incredible job, and I commend you so much. And just before we close out, I mean, my message to this Board of Education: stop the political games. Let's make a decision where every child and every family in this county has the opportunity to go back inside of a school to learn if that is their choice. The political games need to end. Someone on that board has got to step up and be an incredible leader for our community. I don't know who that person is, but someone has got to step up. So I really do appreciate it, Rebecca. You have done an amazing job. You're continuing to do an amazing job. And like I said earlier, fight like hell for your children the rest of your life.
At this point, 100 days plus in, we're looming at that 1 year anniversary. If everything doesn't go our way, February 9th, absolutely. I can put my head on my pillow knowing I did everything I could to make a difference, and a positive difference, so parents can choose versus your hands are tied and you're voiceless. Oh, you want to go to work and your kids have to learn? Oh, the daycares are open. Oh, the restaurants are open. Oh, the kids can go to sports, but they can't go to school. I mean, the list is just goes on and on and on. Like I said, we need to stop being the mad unicorn. Union County, Gaston, private, Cabarrus. I don't care where you look. The Duke study, 90,000 students. If that doesn't say it, I mean, it's just the writing is on the wall everywhere. And like you said, we are lacking leadership. It just baffles me how we're so different. We're treating ourselves so different from the surrounding counties at this point. Thank you so much.
You're right. Thank you so much for joining us. I will be back tomorrow at 4:00 in the afternoon with Dr. James Rachel from Atrium Hospital, who will talk to us about mental health and the importance of that. So, Rebecca, thank you and have a good night. And to all of our listeners and watchers, thank you and have a good night. Take care.
Thank you.